सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The slightly crazed eyes of Lieutenant Colonel David de Crespigny Smiley, swashbuckling volunteer in the Somaliland Camel Corps, veteran of a plot that unseated the King of Iraq, comrade to guerrillas in Greece, and liberator of 4,000 prisoners of the Japanese, all by his account absolutely stark naked, looked over his new secret army. Led by the tough anti-communist Bido Kuka, Lieutenant Colonel David's insurgents were about to go to war against Enver Hoxha's regime in Albania. It was one of the turning points, or meant to be, of the Cold War. But few of the 200 agents sent in would survive. Every last man was betrayed by the Cambridge-educated double agent Kim Philby. The Albanians knew of each infiltration down to the drop zone. And the covert war intended to tear open the Iron Curtain ended in nothing. The story of the many failures and occasional, mostly Pyrrhic victories registered during the Cold War provides important cautionary wisdom for an India increasingly convinced of the need to use the knife to secure its national security interests. Though covert action can sometimes succeed in its aims, it very often creates dangerous second-order consequences. We might never ever know if an Indian covert service in fact killed Hardeep Singh Nijjar, as Canada and the United States appear to be alleging. There's mounting evidence though that India's External Intelligence Service, the Research and Analysis Wing, is seeking to expand its ability to target the country's enemies on a global scale. The campaign is winning the government domestic political applause, but its true costs and true consequences must be dispassionately considered. In the maze covert warriors must walk through, almost every turn can end up leading the wrong way. From their stations in Kabul, United States Signals Intelligence technicians listened in as inter-service intelligence officers congratulated members of the Jalaluddin Haqqani network on this success. Early one summer morning in 2008, an aging Toyota had ploughed into a corner of the Indian Embassy complex in Kabul and blew up, killing 58 people, including Defence Attaché Ravi Mehta and Foreign Service Officer V. Venkateswara Rao. Furious, the then National Security Advisor M.K. Narayanan called for action. Talk is better than fight, he told the media, but it hasn't worked. I think we need to pay back in the same coin. Through the 1980s, when the ISI staged attacks against civilians in Punjab, India had in fact hit back with its own savage bombings. The role of our covert action capability in putting an end to the ISI's interference in Punjab by making such interference prohibitively costly is little known. The late RAW officer B. Raman famously wrote in 2002. In Bangladesh, India hollowed out Pakistan's power by raising a covert army, and it exercised political influence in Nepal and Sri Lanka through its covert services. But then, the covert campaign largely ended under Prime Minister IK Gujaral for a variety of reasons. From the memoirs of officials engaged in decision-making after 26/11, we know Prime Minister Manmohan Singh considered starting up retaliation again. The military, however, did not have the means to deliver precise retaliation, and to make things worse, there was the risk of conflict escalating into an economically crippling conventional war. Prime Minister Singh chose to listen to the United States, which promised to use its leverage to rein in Pakistan. That decision was to come with political costs. Indians died and they did nothing. Soon to be Prime Minister Narendra Modi raged during his 2014 election campaign. The time had come, he said, to talk to Pakistan in its own language. For his part, now National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, a highly regarded Intelligence Bureau veteran, promised what he called a doctrine of offensive defense. The record shows the results of the new strategy have been ambiguous. Following the terrorist attack at Uri in 2016, India struck back across the line of control, for the first time publicizing such attacks. But the ISI responded with a series of Fidayeen suicide squad strikes against Indian military installations. The Balakot crisis raised the stakes and led to a sharp reduction in terrorist violence. That hasn't stopped the ISI, though, from regularly targeting Indian troops. Even though hard evidence is impossible to come by, the little detail available suggests both sides engage in tit-for-tat retaliation. Following a bombing near Lashkar-e-Taiba chief Hafiz Muhammad Saeed's home in Lahore, drones dropped bombs close to an Indian Air Force helicopter pen in Jammu. The message was not opaque. True, India's covert campaign appears to have secured some notable successes. Among them, the killing of the aging Khalistan patriarch Paramjit Singh Panjwad, long sheltered in Pakistan, and trans-border weapons trafficker Mohammad Riaz. The RAW is also alleged to have killed former Al-Badr commander Syed Khalid Raza and Hizbul Mujahideen operative Bashir Peer. Killings like these, though, don't transform the security landscape in any meaningful sense. Dozens of even more important jihadists, after all, are killed in combat in Kashmir each year, and hundreds more remain safely sheltered across the border. In some cases, the covert campaign comes with significant diplomatic costs. The extradition of billionaire fugitive Mehul Choksi has been put on hold by Interpol after a botched attempt to snatch him from his island home in Antigua. Worse, a court in Antigua is now scheduled to hear Choksi's claims that a group of UK-based ethnic Indians carried out the bungled kidnapping, led by a figure with political links to the Indian government. This could have consequences for other future extradition efforts from Western countries. From RAW assets convicted of espionage in Germany to former naval officers facing trial for spying on Qatar, India's efforts to expand its global intelligence reach have led to problem after problem. That isn't itself a problem. But the question that needs a dispassionate answer is whether the potential costs outweigh the gains. Like India, the United States learned that low-grade efforts like the Albania operation yielded nothing. From 1955 on, it went for a bigger strike policy. Following a brief honeymoon, the United States began targeting the regime of left-leaning nationalist leader Kesno Sukarno in Indonesia, for example, supplying rebels on several islands with B-26 bombers. Then in 1965, Australian-trained rebels engineered a coup against Sukarno's regime, which catalyzed a bloodbath. The final solution to the communist problem in Indonesia was certainly one of the most barbaric acts in a century that has seen a great deal of it, the historian Gabriel Kolko wrote. It surely ranks as a war crime of the same type as those the Nazis perpetrated. Far across the globe in Zaire, preparations for a similar operation began weeks after the militant nationalist Patrice Lumumba took power in 1960. Belgian mercenaries captured the resource-rich province of Katanga, forcing Lumumba to call for help from the United Nations. The CIA pitched in on the side of his enemies, leading to the leader's eventual murder. What were the outcomes? Well, Zaire did turn into a pro-Western oasis, Stephen Greenhouse reported in 1988, only to implode again in the next decade, with storm winds of insurgency and organized crime tearing apart the entire region. Efforts at regime change in Iraq and Afghanistan, as is well known, ended in even more technicolor fiascos. Elsewhere in the world too, the CIA failed. It never did succeed in overthrowing its enemies in Cuba, the communist threat it feared most. And Albania, together with the rest of the Soviet bloc, eventually crumbled. No assassinations or covert warfare needed. The ability to track down genuine national security threats and preempt violence directed at Indians is a critical ability that RAW and other national security agencies must cultivate. The ability to locate and kill an Osama bin Laden or Ayman al-Zawahiri is one of the tools that ensures the continental United States is safe no matter what the chaos in the rest of the world. For covert influence to be exercised effectively though, India needs to understand it needs more than one tool and be very thoughtful of when and how it exercises them. The use of the knife might provide a kind of primal emotional satisfaction, but that isn't the same thing as national power. I'm Praveen Swami, and I'm National Security Editor of ThePrint. Thank you for watching this week's Security Code.